Like this.
And don't worry about my
Now,
earlier comments. I'm gonna we'll drop the full ones in the clips for
what you
sure.
what you was telling me earlier, P, about the what text message you sent me?
Oh, so um one of the viewers
Mm-hmm.
we got a lot of comments. Now, I will say this, that full episode, that's
Mm-hmm.
like the most interaction we have gotten on a video.
Is that right?
I'm not talking about the views, but remember when you saw it, you was like, man, people is talking
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
responding. Yeah. So the interaction of the community, that's the most that we got. So even though I know people, hey man, pause it and come back to it. Do whatever you got to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But we will drop the clips as well. But there's something for everybody is the point. But one of the viewers who watched the whole 2 hour thing and said hey man, they was chilling. They was at the gym. It was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the end, we was talking about qualified listeners and uh, people not knowing the difference of if they, when people have the bad habit of talking to people who are not qualified listeners. And then I said,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if a person doesn't understand what I was saying at that point, then they one of them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they one of those people who are not qualified listeners, and they shouldn't, And so, and they contacted me and was like, first of all, shout out to them for the donation because they made a donation um, to No Cap, which was big. We are always accepting donations, as I said on the last one, just like every other podcast. Um, and they said, they was training back in the day, and the person they was training with told them it's basically these 3 phases of competency, and it's unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent, and consciously competent. I'll say it again, and uh, basically, and I'll break it down what that means. But unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent, and consciously competent. So let's start with the first one: unconsciously incompetent. Basically, ignorance. Ignorance is, we use it in different ways, but really what it means is not knowing, right? Being ignorant of something means not to know of, have any understanding or knowledge of. So unconsciously incompetent would be someone who doesn't even know, they're not even aware that they're not competent in a certain area, right? It's not even on their radar. It's not something they could believe that they are doing something great. They could believe that they are, you know, okay where they are, but they're not wise to the fact that they are not wise. They just are oblivious, right? They have
Right.
no idea that they are lacking in that area. Now, consciously competent or consciously incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, this is actually really all of them are both of these are terrible. But consciously incompetent is somebody who knows, they're aware that they're incompetent in the area, and they make the conscious decision to remain incompetent instead of going out and learning, um, educating themselves, training themselves in an area of weakness. Like I say, identify weakness and train until you make it a strength. Someone who is consciously incompetent, the opposite of unconsciously, they are aware, but they just don't care. They just don't, they just don't give a fuck. They are okay knowing that they don't know something, but they'll still put bad practices into habit and say, here's a good way of summing up. You'll hear people say this a lot of times. I know they know what to do, they just don't.
Right.
And
If you knew
and
better,
a
you'll
lot of
do
people
better, but you do
and
know better.
yeah, and a lot of people will say that often. They'll be like, "Oh, I know what to eat, and I know I shouldn't eat this, but I still do. Or I know not to drink this, but I still do. I know what to do, I just don't." And then the question becomes, well, why? I actually talk about that in my book. Like a person consciously making a decision to do something that they know goes against their goals. And then their defense, it's a defense mechanism when they stand on it and say, "Oh, I know what to do. I just don't." It's defensive they're being defensive because their vulnerability is showing and they're covering up a wound like a Band-Aid. So consciously incompetent is a person who knows, who says that they know at least, and is choosing to purposely stay dumb. Now, consciously competent is someone who is aware and they are knowledgeable in the fact that they have this knowledge in a certain area and they practice it. They are very wise.
Your mic is kind of going like it's like kind of like a static to it. You went out. I can't hear you. Still can't hear you. You still can't hear nothing you're saying. Nope, 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 nope. Nope, still can't hear nothing. You're doing sign language. No, we still can't hear you.
Got it.
I can hear you now.
All right. It's a short in these damn earbuds I have plugged in.
It sounds better just like that.
Yeah.
That's how you should always record.
Yeah. No, it was a short in the little cable I got I had put in there. So unconsciously incompetent. I'll start over just in case any of that was cut out. So unconsciously incompetent, again, is an individual who is not aware and they're oblivious to the fact that they're unaware in a certain area they're lacking, and they are just out here doing whatever, giving advice, and unaware of their area of weakness. They're just going along, floating along with no awareness. They're unconsciously incompetent. Consciously incompetent is a person who is aware that they're weak in the area, but they're choosing to continuously be weak in that area. And like I gave the example of someone saying they know what to do, they just don't. And then you have the level that you would hope everyone would want to be at, which is the most positive, which is consciously competent. So being aware of your strengths, being aware of areas of improvement, and also the same. Now, consciously incompetent could also be a positive thing, because a person who is consciously incompetent could be aware that they're incompetent in an area and make the conscious decision to improve in that area. They don't have to stay incompetent. The worst thing to do would be conscious that you're weak in an area and then a person chooses to stay weak in that area, as opposed to the wise thing to do, which would be aware that a person is incompetent in the area and work on improving. And so consciously competent is knowing your strengths, using those strengths, and if you are incompetent in the area, improving and making that a strength as well. So like I say, identify a weakness and train and make it a strength. Some people are not even aware.
Yeah, man, you know better. You knew better, do better. You know what you're supposed to be doing, do it. And
why not? So why do people choose to say defensively, I know what to do, I just don't?
They just don't care. Some people just don't have the drive to see nothing through. And since they don't have the drive to see nothing through, they'll tell you whatever the hell they want to tell you to get you off their back. And when they do things like that, they think they're hurting us by doing it, but they're only hurting themselves. So they know what they need to do. Yeah. They feel like they're a master manipulator, where I can get somebody else to do it for me, and in doing so, they hurting themselves. And I don't really think I think it's unconscious, right? When you do it so many times that it becomes repetition, and so you do it muscle memory. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just it's a best practice for them. It's a horrible practice, but to them they made it a best practice because they kept on doing it in repetition. So they're doing it without even knowing they're doing it, and that just don't. You got just some lazy people, bro. That the bottom line. Some folks are just lazy and don't want to do nothing, and They don't want to be held accountable. I think you know what to do. You just don't want to do it with your lazy ass.
Yeah, it's lazy. Yeah.